Welcome in, Scoopman. Round 16. We're here, the second major buy, mate. Better score for yourself against me last week anyway. That's something.
Yeah, it was it's not often you get about 15 rounds into a season, and it's sort of a mostly regular week, and there's people scoring 700s everywhere. It's
Yeah.
been a funny old season, and yeah. So I've just about held ranks with 768. Still like to push up from where I am. But yeah, I think I'm in a decent spot to do well at the back half. But yeah, I've got to get through round 16. So yeah, as you can see, there are plenty of outs in my team at the moment. There's no
Yeah.
Twal, no Twals, just it is what it is. The Twiler coaster has its ups and its downs, but I do get a good few Bulldogs returning, which helps out a lot. Yeah, where to start pretty much. It's probably going to be along the lines of Tuilagi, hurt his thumb, would have been suspended anyway. Brayley, low minutes twice in a row. Those type of guys are going to be the ones that go out to get me my Jerry Marshall Kings and your those type of players that'll get me at least 12. I'm not decided whether I want to go 12 or 13 yet.
That's fair. Kelma trade makes 12, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I can go Kelma to Whiten and shuffle a bit around and
Okay.
do stuff like that. And then Brayley up to gets pretty close to a JMK. So if I do a third trade, I can do uh I think I can do JMK if I also do like to a luggy cooler to hands or something like that, but that's doesn't get me another number and it's buying a buy player, which is a bit yuck at the best of times. So I've not figured out what I exactly want to do yet. But yeah, it's a process. You've got to look towards who are guys you actually want in your team, who are guys you actually want to buy, and are you going to go out and buy yourself somebody who may not feature in your team for most of the rest of the year just to play 13 this week? Doesn't seem like a great strategy, but at this point we need cash outs to get some of these guns if our team value isn't just going to be what it usually is. So I think that's where I'm going to have to draw the line. I'm either going to get a cash out like an Alex Johnston, which I've bought him twice before and been burnt twice before, and I don't want to, so I'm probably not. And I might just end up playing 12.
That's fair. How many trades coming into this week?
Seven, I think. Yeah,
7.
seven.
So, yeah. 3 seems like a big number, doesn't it, to make?
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, okay. Something I did on my video today and my team was actually to go through players that were 600 and above because, yeah, as you said, the team value, what, a little bit lower. Have you had a look this year compared to last at
I
this stage of the
haven't
season?
compared the exact team values at the same stage as last season, but I think I was probably very high 13s by now,
Yeah.
touching on 14. And at the moment, I am about 13.3. So a good 600K behind at the least and down on trades. So
Mm.
definitely a year where you've got to set up well and preserve your team rather than go too hard for cash cows and everything because you will run out sooner rather than later.
Makes sense. Yeah. I'd say probably our ranks as well dictate that a little bit, just not going as well as last year. The team
Yep.
value is a little bit lower for sure. But let's do that with your team then, and then you can give us a little bit of your general strategy for the next few weeks. Because one thing I notice here, the differences with our squads is that I'm looking to get Hines back probably in a few weeks. You've got him. Teddy's a really good guy for this week. You have him. And then I don't have Fletcher Sharp and you've got him. But obviously you've got the, Kelme issues, Cole issues, Twal issues. So there's a few give and take for both of our sides. But you've got Grant, AFB, Plath, Fafita, Hines and Hughes is 6, Aitken 7, Teddy 8, Drinky 9, Kaipis Paul, we'll give him 10. And you've got a few there. You got King, Karaz, and then 12 sneaks in there at 601k as well. So 13
Yeah.
players, and actually we're both in the same boat with 13. And then obviously a lot of guys here between that sort of 400 to 600 range, and then only one cheapie there with Sharp. So yeah, I suppose it's a question now of how do we get to closer to 15, 16, 17 really good players. And we what, 7 trades left plus the 8. That's 15 trades to be able to get to that. along with injuries and stuff. Hey, so we've got to be really methodical with our potential trades over the next month, especially, right?
Oh, 100%. And just from going through that list, probably a good at least 50% of those guys over 600K are between 6 and 700. So your guys are sort of
Yes.
your borderline keepers sitting around that 50 average, but not necessarily the out and out guns. And this year, we're probably going to have a couple of those on our bench. So very good chance that I just keep a Plath or a Max King in the team for the rest of the year because that's what they're there to do. That's what they there's no real reason to get rid of them when there's other problems and low trades. So from my point of view, those kind of guys are useful and fine to have until you really need somebody else and there's no other way to get them. And they're like eating a hole in your team when somebody's got like a Hopgood scoring 55, 60 instead of 45, 50. So until then, they're absolutely fine. Just make sure that it's not your whole team that's like that. Don't try and get 18 or 19 guys that are averaging 48 because then you're sort of wasting a couple instead of getting those big gun scores and wasting a few dollars in your emergency.
Definitely. One I forgot to mention this week, I did mention AJ, but Jai Gray, a little bit different, obviously. But when would you consider a cash out? Someone I kind of suggested that maybe you'd need out of this next 5 week period from 16 to 20, you'd probably need close to 3 to 4 games, I'd imagine, out of that player to make it worthwhile. Otherwise, I think you'll miss out in round 17 or potentially even 18 or something like that with the amount of Dolphins that we have. Jai Gray, cheap, likely to score better than AJ. Just, fullback v wing, and we've seen his past games, but 16 and 19 most likely, right? And then if Latrell isn't to back up, maybe 20. Like, is there any merit in him now, or is it probably a little bit too early for someone that only plays a couple?
I did look at him briefly, but yeah, it's only those 2 games. And in this year where we have limited trades, if you're stuck with a red dot in round 22 and you've got only a couple left, you're going to be stretching for fielding a 17 some weeks when other things go wrong. So I think this year we have to push back against a pure cash out until as late as we can. So
Yeah, okay.
I would probably avoid him unless you got like a really good amount of trades, like let's say 10 left or something.
Yeah. That's actually not a bad way to think about it as well, because you're saying that even you could get to round 21, 22 and go, oh, it's probably still not the best idea for a cash out, or even like around 20 once the big buys are done, just because of that fact that we probably run out of trades. And if you can have more green dots, the better, right? Just to get 17 on the park and then as many as you can in that last round with restings.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
if we have a look at the teams with late buys, like your Roosters, your Seagulls, your Cowboys, your Tigers, if we've got 2 or 3 Tigers, 2 or 3 Roosters, 2 or 3 Seagulls, plus a red dot cash out, then if anything else goes wrong, you're pushing to get 17. And some of those guys might be coming from deep in your emergencies and scoring you 25 instead of a 40, for example. So I think this year, because our depth isn't as quality, it is tough to justify a cash out unless you're able to avoid that situation. And the way to avoid that situation is by having either very spread out team with not a lot of concentration in 1 or 2 teams, or a lot of trades. So it's a tough one to go for cash outs this early, in my opinion.
Yeah. So that leads us to the other thing then of someone like AJ. Let's just say he continues to score what he's averaging now, 26, 27. We know that he can and usually does score a lot more tries than this and scores better like he did last year. It was like he was way better than what he's scoring right now for your team. It wasn't amazing, but it was at least decent. And someone like him, you're going to get all of those games out of him for the rest of the season, right? So he just misses next week. And then if he's fit, he's going to be playing all those games. So I suppose let's go through those buys while we're here. So Knights, let's say a lot of people have a Kai Paul, you might have a Fletcher Sharp. You probably have one, right? Let's just say you have that one. You can use that guy as your looper that week. That's fine. Like, for thinking we're not going to, like, cash outs are good at the back end of the year for looping as well, right?
Yeah.
But Eagles next, you're probably going to have a Garrick. You might end up with an Olakuatu or a DCE in the back end because he's fairly cheap. Roosters, you're probably going to have one of them, Manu Tedesco. least. Broncos, a Haas, a Carrigan, a Walsh. Cowboys, yeah, a Robson could be really cool. Cotter, these types of
Robson,
guys we're
Drinky,
holding.
Cotter, yeah.
Drinky, yeah. Round 26 is Tigers. Yeah, we're probably going to keep one of those guys, but by this point, that's a little bit less relevant. So maybe it is getting one of these cheap guys that have got a spot. They could randomly score a good game. It could end up being like a random, Ben Trebojevic or these types of guys that are, I think he's a bit more expensive, but that like 350 guy, that can play a lot, like can play all the games, and you don't want to play, but if you have to, you don't have to make another trade. That's it's probably where we're gonna have to be at, hey, with the lack of trades.
Yeah, it's tough. You do want somebody who is going to be playing. I was just scrolling and scrolling through the options last night, and I even had a brief look at like a Nathan Brown or something before I slapped myself, because it's like, well, at least he's getting like 45 minutes a game. Surely he has to score like 25s and 30s at least, and he's reasonably cheap. There's a lot of picks like that you just don't want to really buy, but I still think they're better than having somebody who's just a dead space in your team for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's probably going to work out better. And usually it used to be a bit of a problem, like having someone like that cheap. And obviously I know it is in Supercoach with like that auto emergency in the back end of the year. Like you want sort of 20 players a week, 3 of them 40 to 50, and don't have that like bench utility hooker or something like that that's absolutely cooking you. But if we go down that list right now, who are these guys we know are going to get their spot all year? It's Johnston, it's Saab, Savage most likely. Because what you want to be 350 and below, really. Like even Nelson's a 348. That's wild.
I've watched him, but he just isn't getting minutes. It's crazy to see him that cheap.
And Brown, as he said, we got Hopewadi, but unlikely to him to be like Hargraves, like all these players that you expect to be there all year. Bailey Hayward, like he's starting to get more minutes. Like there's people you could go for it, and it feels gross. At least with AJ that he has got the averages in the past, whereas all these guys you just be going, oh well, they're on the downslope, and they're going to get what they're going to get, but they're going to be there, right? So it's interesting. But it's a completely different strategy if you've got 4, 5, 6 trades compared to if you've got 10, right, at the moment.
Oh, 100%. You've got to hold strong and really plan them out, whereas you can go a little bit more bold if you've got 10. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, and then like someone like Ruben Porter, it looks like we'll probably get Bateman back in the next couple of weeks. Does that affect Porter? Does it affect Sione Fainu? Does it, affect the new guy on the bench? Those types of things. It's a question mark. Like it could pay off for you this week. It could not. Like there's a lot of question marks. But then like even look at most people's teams, like in the questions I've got this week, the trade out options, there is still a little bit like, like would you actually trade them out? Like even Cotter, like you can go, oh, you could trade him out, but do we just hold him all year? Like there's
at
all
this
those
point, I
questions
think
as well.
we do. I'm regretting trading him out, to be honest, because he is one of those guys who is probably a little bit of a step up from like your Karaz King, Law, Plath types potentially, who can average 50 and you're not thinking about it, compared to somebody who might be averaging high 40s and bleeding a little bit of points to your head-to-head matchups.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about. I like it. I like it a lot. Mate, general plans for you going forward after this week? Are you needing a certain player in round 17? Are you down a few in round 19? Where are you at? Do you know?
I had a play around with it last night, and I've come to the conclusion that I basically need a round 19 hooker and a fair few wing fullbacks, which is another reason why I'm potentially looking at Johnston. And it's pretty much decide whether I want to go for a Jeremy Marshall King, which will cover both 16 and 19, or a Reed Mahoney who's scoring a little bit better, just has a huge tackle base this year, and then use hands to cover that or something like that. But hands duel might be really important in round 19 in the halves. So it's a tough one to figure out, because there's a lot of really highly owned teams on the buy in round 19. So we've got to plan that one up pretty well.
If you've got surplus right now, if you held in the wing fullbacks, Talangi, Sharp, Kolar, Karaz, Iro, Aiken, that's surplus.
For 19.
Yeah. Oh, no, Karaz. Sorry. Yeah, right on. Right bang on. Talangi, Sharp, Kohler all play 19. So if you wanted to go that way, you could.
Oh yeah. I was probably thinking about trading Colo because I'm just annoyed
Yeah,
at
that's
him.
right. That's I was just looking at that. Like straight out numbers wise, you're
Yeah.
set. Um, without making a trade, obviously. So that's ideal.
Yeah.
Hines is going to be there for you in the halves. Yeah, you'll be short a half. Yeah. So that'll be working out. But
Yeah.
who is
My
available?
my overall general thoughts at the moment are probably get a Rabideau or two in, get a Whiten or a Johnston, and push some stuff around with duels. When we've got lots of really useful duels this year. We've got Weeks with the half wing fullback, Whiten with the half center, Aiton with the edge center. You got your wing fullback centers. You're able this year, if you've got a few of them, to push like a wing fullback and move your team around so that you've got a mid playing. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it just seems to be the fact that, yeah, the Plath one, for example, anytime you'd want to maybe move him to half, there's just no mids available or for that certain
Yeah.
round or something. So similar with Aitken, I think I used him in edge in round 13, but I think he's going to be locked in center for the rest of the year for me just because,
Mm.
no, no, center's actually got a few like Farnworth, Aitken, obviously, Manu, Gagai. There's like a bunch of decent scorers, but it's like, yeah, are we able to spend that much on center, or do we just keep locking and loading with like an Iro and we've got Karaz, and I feel like they're going to be good enough,
I
right? And
mean,
we
I think they're good. Like
yeah,
Iroh's averaging 41.6 and he's just continuing to get it done in base. Like when you've got an Iro and a Karaz in your team, you're almost there already and you add one or two more and you just set you don't need to touch it. So I think
yeah.
my plans for that are to grab Garrick just before round 19 when he's bottomed out a little bit and then I'll just sit with that. I won't bother with like a Manu or Farnworth or even a Gagai maybe because I've got huge gun with Aitken and a couple of others that can back him up.
Yeah, probably wanting to spend our money on, getting a 750 half or another hooker or another big mid or
Yeah.
something like that, right? Rather
Or
than,
get another good edge maybe because all of them are deserting us.
yeah, well, it's Fafita. Oh, Fafita was out this week, but Fafita and
Yeah. Fafita,
um,
Tulagi hurt himself, Pierce Paul's in and out, benched, not
Katoa,
benched.
really. Yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty
Fafita
much what
Katoa.
the plan is at this stage.
He's a beast, man. I'm so glad to see him come out the other side. Hey, like it was like, oh, he played well last year, but he wasn't dominant. And this year he just looks dominant, doesn't he? He's a big boy. Good
He's
catch under
great.
the high ball and everything. Like there's a lot of Fafita about him, but just he works a bit harder on defense. I reckon anyway. Okay, so yeah, so you could be fine, but obviously you've got a couple of trades left available. Are you planning to have two available by round 20? That's my goal anyway.
I think that'll be about where I sit. Yeah, I don't think I'll need to make any next week or maybe just the one, depending if I,
Injuries and
yeah,
stuff.
that'll probably be a hands trade and then I'll just sit on it.
Okay, so you're thinking still getting hands just because what? Just because of the price
Potentially,
and
yeah.
the duel.
And like his duel for round 19 will be incredibly useful.
Yeah.
If I've got Grant, another decent hooker, and a hands duel floating around somewhere, that's plenty of hookers and I can forget about it.
Oh, that's for bloody sure. That is for bloody sure. All right. So I just want to quick touch on the thousand. Top thousand there, obviously, coming into round 16. 5.3 trades left is the average. Average team value is actually, or salary cap, put it all together at 13.3. So everyone seems pretty close, eh? Like even you're at what,
Mm.
11,000 and you've got a similar cap. So yeah, that's good to know. And we obviously saw how close the total points was across all of the uh all of the rankings there. In terms of what else we got next? Yeah, just guys that people are bringing in last week. Obviously, Fletcher Sharp's a big one. Do you see him as a pretty important one for next week? Like in my situation, not owning him, is that someone you'd look to target just as one of those
It
cash outs?
it's a sort of a tough one because he will make very good money for those few weeks that Ponga isn't back. Um, is that enough? Maybe. If you think he's good enough, and like some people saying potentially, I haven't heard any proper word on it, but like, oh, maybe he'll move into the halves and stuff like that. If there's any other chance of that, that's great. But like, how many trades do you have? Do you want him? Do you need cash gen, or it's a consolidating team? I think he's pretty good. Um, but there's also a couple of things you can say against him. Do you, especially with Ponga looming?
Yep, definitely. Mate, I just want to have a quick touch on sort of the top 10 or 20, just based on where they're at for trades. And if, us in the chasing pack, if you're 300th or whatever, and you think you're a good chance of winning this, let's find out. But this fellow Warriors 13 ended up pushing into first last week and had a really good week, obviously, with 916. 4 trades left, so not the worst. I've seen worse, that's for sure. Vaughnie, unfortunately for him, all out of trades. Used the last one last week. There you go. David Armstrong to
Oh,
Stefano. Oh,
Steph, what a
what is
trade.
going on?
What a
How do you get
Some people just
so
have
good
got
at
it
this
this year.
game?
Hey, it's great.
How are you so good at this game? Latrell in round 14. I suppose that's why they're in second, but well done. Well done,
Yeah.
Vaughnie. So let's have a look at the team, actually, just for a bit of fun. Oh, he's got Hopgood, the poor fella. Didn't need that injury. Atkinson has to hold Atkinson through all this.
Mm.
So what are we going to go through? You got Cook, Tarpany, Stefano, Fafita. So it's 4. Hughes is 5. Oh, Garrick, that's rough. 6 for Ewan Aiken, 7 for Weeks. Latrell out, hurts. Plath, 8. Kohler, not going too good. Max King back. Yeah, so you're going to be a little bit short for this week, 10, 11 or something like that. Man, that's a lot of rounds, isn't it? It's a lot of rounds to hold off. We'll have
Yeah.
to see where he ends up. V Baldy, 4 left. So have a good at some of the names that you're going through as well. 3 left for the next one. 6. So Grazer.
That's good.
There was one I found that was in the top 10, top 15 or something that had like 12 trades left 2 weeks ago or something. I
Yeah.
was like, whoa.
If you look at if you go back to yet another fantasy stats site
Here we
and
go.
pick all the guys who are high, there's one guy who's ninth and got 11 left, and
That's the one.
75th
Benji.
has 14 left somehow.
Oh my. That's impressive. All right. Total points v trades.
Yeah. Yeah. If you just hover over them, it sort of tells you where it's at. And it's some of them are doing really well. Some of them have got good trades left and good points. That big peak over 11, that's huge. Like 11 trades left in the top 10 is monstrous.
Wow,
And
man.
then 14th, 14 trades is 75th. He's the
Wow.
most trades and he's 75th. That's really, really impressive as well.
12's pretty good too. Yeah, that's cool. Cool way to look at it for sure. There you go. That probably makes it a bit easier than doing it my way. Yes, there's a heap on 0. Be cool to see how many, but what's that? 50 or so with 0. So I don't know. Maybe there's a chance for us left still, mate. Anything you want to talk to the people about? Any general thoughts on goodbyes, holds this week? Anything you're seeing that people are selling that you're like, oh, don't do that?
I did notice this week I was really confused by the who's hot and who's not list for some of them. Like I would not go out and buy Lihai Hapuade this week. He's equal most bought at the moment, and I can't understand it because like Turbo's supposed to be back very shortly. You might get one game out of him, and
Yeah.
then he's gone. You might get 50K out of him, wave goodbye, and then he is a proper red dot. So I don't love that.
Habs back. Woo.
Yeah, that's good. It's tough though because he sort of made 100K, isn't necessarily goal kicking,
No,
and it's really tough. You kind of want to buy him, but I don't know if it's a good decision.
just watch him. Enjoy it. That's all I'm going to do. Who's the big buy? Is it Tedesco this week? Like, if you didn't have Tedesco and Hughes, would you go Hughes over Tedesco? How would you play Fafita? Like, is Fafita an important one for people to buy? Like,
If you don't have a good half this week, I think buying Jerome Hughes is a really good play. Because he's still got a good number of rounds without Munster left, and he's available in a very important week. I mean, he's playing ravaged Dolphins, isn't he? So like there could be lots of attack with that.
yeah, it seems to be like good games, but attacking style games against the Finns, and then he plays, like Titans, Tigers, or something the next 2 weeks. So
Yep, pretty good.
pretty good. Which hooker would you buy this week? Would you go Cook or Reed or Appy or James K?
I probably would say Reed over Cook at the moment, just because there's these signing things with the Dragons happening, and potentially, like with Murray back, do they start giving Marmozelos a couple minutes and giving Cook 65 like they were at the beginning of the year? Then you could be in the dumps a bit. So I think Cook has potential to be really good and a gun. We know he can. He has for years and years, but does have question marks attached to it. So I'd probably, unless you already have him, go the other way.
What do you like Stefano as a buy? Or would you try and spend up and go to the extra 100 and go to Adden or something like that? You grabbed Adden last week or week before?
Yeah, I grabbed Adden last week. I was just fed up with these sort of those high 40s guys where we didn't know whether they were good or not and stuff. I'm like, you know what? I'm just buying somebody who I know is good. I'm just
And he
doing
got
it. I know
49.
This is around 27, but I'm just doing it.
Oh, that's great. Sick of the high 40s guys, 49. Thank you.
Yep.
Who else you got there? Tarpane. Yeah, so you'd still go for AFB net this week if you had your time over?
I I think he is a good buy because he just has ceiling games. Like, and unless you're a Yo or a Haas, that's very tough. That's very tough to find in a non-origin guy. You've got these huge
Mm,
ceiling games because he goes over for these tries. He
yeah.
scores 90s a couple times a season and you don't really blink at it because it's like, oh, that's just him. If you hit one or two of those, it's absolutely fantastic to own.
Yeah. He scored a double against the Titans last time they played too, so early on the
There you
year,
go. Look at that.
which is
Get on.
good. Um, yeah, I suppose wing fullback, if you needed one this week, sweet. If not, you could wait till next week. No, do you make two trades to get to a Teddy or a Fafita or a Hughes or something like that? Or is it just kind of like if you can't get to him fairly easy, just don't? Like it's hard, eh?
I probably wouldn't. I'd probably like use Jules and just play Whiten at center and somebody else at wing fullback if it
Yeah.
takes you two trades, something like that.
May as well talk about White and then. What is the appeal with him? Just obviously he covers center this week. Jewel fairly cheap. Like, what are you expecting him to average for the next month or so?
If he can average about sort of 40, I'm pretty happy with that. In the halves, he's doing more, involved more, kicking more. Latrell's doing a lot of kicking, which makes him extremely interesting. Um, but his price is ballooning up after that big 90s score, obviously.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, Whiten's the other one doing the big kick meters. You can see, especially in the last few weeks, 215. He had a 327 in there as well. So especially in the games where Latrell's out for Origin, those 16 and those 19s, he could have quite good games.
Mm. Yeah, definitely could. I need a center in my head-to-head side, and he's definitely on the list just because he's easy to switch over from a Jack Cole or something like that. Do you think Cole's a hold or a sell? Is it just like it could go either way, right? With Cleary potentially back or Schneider keeping his spot or
Yeah, there's less security there. Whiten, you know, is going to be there. Um,
yeah.
Again, it's the year of we repeat the same things, but I think it just depends how many trades you have and how
Yeah.
much certainty you have.
Mm. Yeah, it does sit like obviously without Latrell this week and 19 is pretty cool. And
Mm.
to get 327 kick meters with him in the side, with Latrell in the side was great. But you do have to obviously worry about his negatives because we know that there's plenty of them when he plays center and six, obviously. Center and six. Yeah, that's right. Missed tackles wise, it's always, he's always an error
Yeah.
or something in that game. But like my thing with him last week was the fact that he had all those stats, the 120 run meters, the 327 kick meters, and still only got 30. That was my kind of worry with it. But also could be, the other side of it and go, well, he's getting stats across the board. There will be games where he gets 40 fairly comfortably just in base as well. So I can see both sides of it for sure. And yeah, definitely wouldn't be annoyed if anyone decided that they had to get him. He's probably definitely a better pick than like AJ, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
depends what you need, right? Yeah, center, as you said, you might need that half in round 19. Hey, if Hands is covering Hooker or whatever you want to do with that. So yeah, definitely an
Yeah,
interesting
definitely.
pick. Definitely an interesting pick. Yeah, because there's not a lot else at that mid range, is there?
No, and I think it's coming out. Like usually we've got at least one or two guys up at the 3s and the 4%, and it's everybody's kind of just trading out a few guys, but look at the spread. Like there's so much variety. at such
There
similar
is, yeah,
trading levels.
crazy. And they all look outside of Lehigh, like he could do well this week, but outside of him, they look like good picks. So obviously, Pat one's a bit more of like a people just love watching him play, and good to have him in the side. And he's a bit of a point of difference. But best buy of the week, mate, Jaden Campbell. What do you think of his last couple of outings?
I think he's good in the halves. There's tiny bits of uncertainty as to what's happening when Brimson's coming up, but I don't think that the job security worries with Boyd are as big as a factor as a lot of people think. Because Boyd was given a big run. He had his time and he had it for a long time. And I think they just have to give this a go now. And Brimson
Yeah, that's
was
fair.
good at fullback. I think he just has to stay there. They've seen it time and time again.
Yeah.
And I just don't know now that his price has jumped a bit to where he's, what is he, 550 or something already? Do you view him as a 50 average guy? And if you don't, is he worth buying? He's got good buys. He's played 16 and 19. But yeah, I don't know if I view him as one of the top three guys I'll have in my wing fullback in the run home unless I'm running short on trades.
Yeah, and it's just at that price, isn't it? It's at the moment,
Yeah.
if that can fit. But yeah, you'd want to go up to Teddy, I'd imagine, if you had the cash. But yeah, I bought him last week at 37 being priced
Yeah,
at. And his average is
that was a
actually
good week to do it, I think. When he was
yeah,
basically 500K, that's a good
changed quick.
time. Now that he's jumped up basically 3 points in price, makes it a
Mm.
lot harder.
Yeah, changes quick, doesn't it? One week someone can be decent. One week they could be a little bit average. Or yeah, you're picking between two players and one goes up 50 and the other one doesn't go too well or something. It's a fun old game, and yeah, people speak about the week after I've been talking about, oh, buy, and then I don't talk about it in the next week. It probably means because they're either still a clear buy and they've got 70 or 80, or the
All the
ship
windows
sailed.
gone.
Yeah, and you're done. So there you go. All right, I think we'll leave it there, mate. Good stuff for tonight, as
Yep.
always, and everyone's still loving the scoop videos and waiting for it with bated breath. We'll get it out for you tonight as soon as this is done. And yeah, thanks, Scoop, for being on, and good luck for your week this week. You're into the top 10,000 after this week. Mark my words, it has to happen, right?
Surely. Has to
Four
happen.
figures. Let's do it.
That'd be good to see.
That's right. See you, team.
See ya.